Hey friends, I'm Otis Gibbs, and this is Steve Fishell. He's going to share some stories about the time that he spent playing and touring with Emmylou Harris.
I was playing with Commander Cody. We were on tour opening for Emmylou along with 3 or 4 other artists on this European tour. Most of the other artists were Nashville based, and Commander Cody was West Coast based. And so that meant I tended to hang and gravitate with the musicians in Emmylou's band. Hank DeVito was the steel player, Frank Reckard, the guitarist, Mike Bowden was on bass. We just hung out, in between shows, and we were traveling together. We were all on a plane together. It's a chartered plane, so you'd see everybody at 5:30 in the morning as you're getting on the plane. That's about as real as it gets, right? So anyway, I didn't realize at the time that Hank DeVito had decided to leave, and so they were looking for a replacement. And so they were looking at everybody on that tour, and they were looking at other areas too. I'm sure they were all over. But I was unaware of that. It's probably a good idea. Good thing. So when I got back I stayed in Europe for a couple of weeks, and when I got back to the Bay Area where I was living, I got a call. They wanted me to come down and audition for Emmylou. And you can just imagine, because I knew all of her records. I knew all about her before she was signed to Warner's. The Graham Parsons stuff I was very familiar with. So I was a big fan of hers since I heard her sing Streets of Baltimore on GP, with Graham Parsons. So it was pretty mind-blowing. And there was a lot of pressure, but I just decided, okay, I'm just going to go down there. I'm going to do the best I can. And John Ware informed me that I should know all 5 of the albums that were out at that time. This was right at the time when 1980. This was in the spring of 1980. Roses in the Snow was just coming out. Jerry Douglas was all over that. They were nice enough to let me go to Warner Brothers Records in Burbank and they had 5 copies of the albums there for me. Although I really didn't need them. I had them, but I don't think I had Blue Kentucky Girl. There were 1 or 2 that I didn't have, but I knew Luxury Liner upside down, backwards and forwards, because Albert had been a friend and Albert Lee played on that, and I'd seen Emmylou twice, once with James Burton, a couple times with Albert, and then with Frank Reckard. So I was familiar with all the different stages of the Hot Band. So my guns were loaded. I go in, I'm ready to go. And so I go to it was at a rehearsal studio in North Hollywood, and I go there, and there's nobody there. I was at the right place. This is where the audition was, but they just said, okay, well, great. Well, just go ahead and set up your pedal steel and your dobro in there. Emmylou will be here in about an hour. Just go ahead and get tuned up. And I started to put it together that I was just going to play solo alone with Emmylou Harris for an hour. And that's what happened. It was jaw-dropping.
She played acoustic guitar and
Yes, she did. She sat on a stool. She was super sweet, super nice. She opened herself up. I could tell that, it's an audition, so you can't get too close to somebody in case it didn't work out. But I got through it. I think one of the things that really helped was that from the beginning, I started on dobro, and I never stopped playing dobro. I was a big Mike Aldridge fan, and the Seldom Seen I listened to a lot. Just really loved Mike Aldridge's playing, and then I got into Jerry Douglas as well. So I was ready to play dobro as well as pedal steel, and I think that really helped. I not only that I knew the parts, and Hank had coached me a little bit too. He had said, "You see her out there? When she sings, you don't play. When she's not singing, you can play. But otherwise, it's pretty simple, right?"
Wise words.
But it's not easy for some people, You feel like you got to show what you can do and all that nonsense, right? You got to back off. It's not about you. It's about an ensemble supporting this extraordinarily gifted vocalist, this angelic voice coming through the monitors, and the songs that she either wrote or that she chose were just perfection. That she just has a gift for being able to find material for herself. She keeps a collection of recordings always. She just has this big pile of songs to choose from. She's a collector. she hears something, she just goes, well, maybe 5 years from now, this could be good. And it goes into this safe place, right? And she just hits it out of the park again and again. She's such a talent at knowing what's right for her voice. But to say I wasn't nervous would be an understatement. I was quite nervous. I was ballsy enough to say, if I never ever play with you again, could we please do Satan's Jewel Crown? Because I loved that song, and I knew that she'd done it on Elite Hotel, so she was fine. Oh yeah, sure, let's do that. So we played Satan's Jewel Crown. I can still hear it. It was incredible. It was just really, really a fun moment. A hard thing to do was for me to play a solo on Las Vegas alone with her on acoustic guitar. And fortunately, I didn't stumble too badly. But that was challenging to be able to play something, with just her on. It was like, oh, what am I doing here? So it all ended. She said, "Thank you very much. We'll let you know." And I packed everything up, and I was so nervous that I couldn't find my way out of the neighborhood. I kept missing the turn onto the freeway to get back to home where I lived. I missed it 2 or 3 times. I had to go back around the block because my head was spinning so much. I can see it right now. I was just so confused and startled by the whole thing. It was just a lot of input for a 27-year-old kid to take in, but yikes. The next morning they called and they said, how's your baseball game? And I said, I played Little League. I pitched in Little League. I'm okay. So they said, all right, you've got the job. You can just be on time, be in tune, and you got the gig. When I got in the band, Ricky Skaggs was playing fiddle, John Ware was playing drums, Don Johnson was playing keyboards, Tony Brown had left. Frank Reckard, the illustrious Frank Reckard, who kept me on my toes at all times with that beautiful B-bender guitar of his, was playing guitar. Barry Tashin joined, and he, who I was familiar with because he'd sung on GP. And he also had been in this incredible band in the Northeast called The Remains, Barry and the Remains. And they had opened for the Beatles in 1966. Yeah, they were on like 12 dates, or I don't remember the exact number, but 10, 12 dates opening for the Beatles, playing stadiums with the Beatles. I know. And then Wayne Goodwin was on fiddle. He replaced Ricky Skaggs eventually. But when I got in the band, Ricky was still in the band, and we did 14, 18 dates together till through into the summer. His last date with Emmylou was at Red Rocks. I remember whenever that first date was that I played with her there. I ended up playing there 5 times with Emmylou. It's a remarkable place to play. Really, really great. 3 times with Commander Cody, too. So really fun. So when the live album I participated on was called Last Date. That was back in '82 or so. And that was scary. Emmy doesn't like to do things the simple way. She's got to do it. She's got to put the challenge up there. So she decided to do a live album of all new material. No greatest hits. So there's no greatest hits on that record. It's all brand new songs. It's like we're doing recording sessions in front of people. And so there was a lot of pressure on that. But it was cool. And the vibe was to try to emulate what it was like to be in a California honky-tonk. So we'd go play in Fresno. We'd go play in the Valley in Los Angeles at the place called the Country Club. We played at the Catalyst in Santa Cruz. I remember that really well. We played in a theater in San Francisco. We tried to get it as close to a honky-tonk vibe on stage as possible. She even went to the trouble of learning Buckaroo on the guitar and played that herself. On the record, that's her playing Buckaroo. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And if she were here, she'd say, yeah, I only got it right once. But I would say, Emmy, so what? You sat on the back of the bus for 2 months and learned how to play that song and on a Paisley Telecaster like James Burton, and you got up there and you played it every night, and you did nail it that one night in Fresno or San Francisco, wherever it was. But she did. It's her, And I was really proud of her. She just really wanted to have, a sense of what it's like to play a Fender guitar in a bar, And she wasn't really known for playing electrics at that time. She was known for playing J200s. So it was really cool that she did that. What's great was that you'd see Emmy in the airport and her hair would be pulled back and she'd look kind of like a librarian. And she was a class valedictorian at her high school. So, you know, she's Emmylou, you know, you hear the expression genius. I don't like to throw that word around very often. That's kind of a Hollywood thing to do. But I know for a fact that Emmylou is a genius intellect. There's no question about that. I've only known a couple of people like this, but she is so smart and so gifted. It all comes together in this beautiful way. But back to your question, she could tie her hair back and walk through the airport and go completely unnoticed. But then the amazing thing to observe was this transformation that takes place between sound check and then her going to her dressing room and becoming, transforming from Emmy, as we call her Emmy, or we'd sometimes call her Sally Rose. That was Mangler, came up with that name, referred to Emmy as Sally Rose and the Buds, was for the band. And that title was used for that album, the Sally Rose album in 1985. But Emmy transforms. She suddenly, you know, you're getting ready to go on and it's 5 minutes before you go on and she comes to the side of the stage and then she looks like the Emmylou Harris that we're more familiar with her public beauty and her just her charisma. She's so filled with charisma. She becomes taller. You know, she just seems taller. Maybe it's those boots. I don't know. She just becomes bigger than life to me, you know. I'm fortunate enough to know the personal side of her, and because if I didn't, I'd probably be so intimidated by the way she looks when she gets up on stage. And then I suddenly realized this is the other side of this person that I know. And it's this stunning God-given talent that she has that's coming through the monitors as we're playing. It's just really almost hard. It's difficult to concentrate. It's hard to express how fun that was and how inspiring it was to hear her when she was singing live. Coming through the monitors is this voice that we know. Just if you want a sample, just put on Poncho and Lefty. Just listen to the record. Just check out and imagine that voice is coming right at you through a monitor on stage, and you're having to answer to that voice. Of course, I didn't look at it that way. I looked at it as, oh, I get to answer to this voice. I get to reply. I get to dialogue with this voice, and that's very, very stout inspiration. And so it was really the greatest experience to be able to have on stage, to be able to play at the level where we're making an album, you know. And she was so nice to us because she always had us play on her records. So the band that played on the albums also is touring the music, and so it's like Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, or what Emmylou and the Hot Band, or Linda Ronstadt and her band, you know, played their music live. James Taylor. So it was special to us, and so we wanted to be as good as possible. Afterwards, we never complimented each other. There were never, no backslapping. Oh, you were great. You were awesome. Oh, it was pretty quiet, you know. The only compliments would come from Mangler. Phil Kaufman, our road manager, would come in from time to time, and if it was a good night, he'd say, "That was incredibly average." And we knew he'd done good. But you can only imagine how much I learned playing with Emmylou. It really was an honor to have spent that time with her. And I learned whatever I know about the recording studio from Brian Ahern, her producer, and Emmylou. And just them letting me play on the records. They had me on Evangeline, the album in 1980, on Dobro, after I'd been in the band for 3 or 4 months, and I hadn't even performed live with her yet. They wanted to have me feel included, so they asked me to come in and play on James Taylor's song called Mill Worker. Jerry Douglas afterwards says, "You got Mill Worker," in a friendly way. We're dear friends. I love Jerry Douglas. He's the best, and but he teased me about that. because I don't even come close to his talent. He's just such a remarkable player, and I really look up to him. Plus, he's a wonderful person too. So Emmy brought us all in. Whenever we got in the band, we got to start playing on the records. So what a special experience that is to have, and it motivated you on stage to meet that same standard on stage that you had in the studio. And that was always a challenge every single night. You never let that drop. And we'd have a bad night from time to time because it's just human. It just happens, But Mangler would be right there to cheer us up. But Mangler absolutely was there from the beginning and was my road manager for many, many years. I have endless great times with Mangler. I love him. Yeah, he's just absolutely wonderful. One time on the bus, he just got going. He clearly could have been a stand-up comedian. He just went on a roll for about 4 hours and had everybody laughing. Oh my God, it was just, he just would pull these one-liners out of the air. He's just a genius when it comes to that. And I mean, it wasn't like 15 or 20 minutes. It just was endless. It went on and on and on for the whole afternoon. Had everybody just rolling on the ground, howling in laughter. Whenever we'd have a bad gig, for instance, and everybody has a bad day, he'd come in and he'd cheer us up. He'd say something funny, lift us up. We had a lot of code words. Do you know the term 86? Yeah, right. I suppose we all do. Well, if somebody had slipped into the dressing room ahead of the show and we were trying to get ready and we were nervous and we were trying to get ready, and somebody was maybe taking up Emmy's time or something where it should have happened afterwards, right? Should have been later after the show. We would look at Mangler when he'd walk into the room, and we'd look at the person and we'd go, 83, 83 and a half. 84, and Mangler would come in, right? He got the cue. He goes, "Well, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to have to get ready for the show now, and we'll see you afterwards. Thank you for coming." He would handle the situation, right? Which could be awkward for the band, to say, "Hey, look, we're a little bit absorbed trying to get our heads together for this, this show. Please give us some privacy." Mangler was the greatest at that kind of thing. She never did the same set list twice. She would sit on the bus or on the flight and work out a new set list for the crowd where we were going to play, wherever it was. And what that did was, when I auditioned, I had to know 50 songs. The 5 albums, 10 songs each, plus others. So what that meant was, as you got into this for a couple of years and more albums came out, you had a repertoire. There were very few songs that she didn't do. The fun and the excitement was to scurry over when the set list was finally written and copied. They would post it at the tuning station where we would tune up, on the side of the stage. And so you'd run over there around 5:30 and look to go down the list to see what the ringers were, because there would be songs in there that we hadn't done in 4, 5, 6 months, like Here, There, and Everywhere, To No One, songs with a lot of chord changes, How High the Moon, difficult songs. And so then you'd be sitting over there tuning, and then you'd be running the chord changers before you'd go on, because yikes, we had, and sometimes we do them at sound check, so we'd get a running start. But that just kept you on your toes, right? Because the set list is changing every night, and there's always 3 or 4 ringers in there, so you never got bored. Sometimes, I remember early on when it started, she started the show with To Daddy solo. She would just start with To Daddy, and it was like you'd be gasping listening to her voice coming through as you're about to go play the second song, and it was just like, how I can't believe I'm doing this. This is a dream. It's like a dream. Speaking of dreams, if you don't mind me telling this, I had a nightmare for years that, early on also we started with Willie Nelson's song Sister's Coming Home, which is on, I think, Blue Kentucky Girl. And my bad dream was we're at a stadium, which we didn't play that often, but I'm at a stadium in the dream, and I'm far, far away from the stage, and Sister's Coming Home is on. Emmylou's on stage, and they're playing. They started without me because I couldn't get to the stage. Why? Because security wouldn't allow me through because I didn't have the right credentials. And I'm trying to explain to this person the size of a refrigerator that honestly, I'm supposed to be playing with her right now, but you've got to let me through. This is the bad dream. Meanwhile, sister's coming home, da 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 da. Please let me through. And it's just, I've had that dream many times.
You still have it?
It's been a little while, but you do have anxiety dreams about performance. About now, it's more like my guitar is way out of tune, or my guitar shorts out, and I have a lot of people, and the guitar is just completely shorting out, and I can't get a sound out of it. Or worse is I don't know the material. That's kind of like the high school dreams that we all have, where you can't find the class. Have you ever had that one? Well, this is you go up to a stage and you get on stage with somebody like Emmylou, and you don't know any of the songs or the keys or anything, and there's 6,000 people.